Welcome to See Hear Love. I'm your host, Melinda Estabrooks, and today our theme is You Asked and We Answered. So we combed through our social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, and pulled a number of questions from you, our viewers, that you wanted answers. Now, you had a lot of great questions, some tough ones, many that we could relate to, others that forced us to think and pray about how to respond so we could answer wisely and honestly. So here is part one of You Asked and We Answered. And to answer your questions, we have the entire team here today.
Yay!
Woo!
The full team.
The full team, the smart team. We're going to need all of you, right?
These are big questions.
Yeah, because there's a lot of great questions. And I love that our viewers, when we said, hey, do you have any questions for us, they immediately got online and started asking us. So I love that. So to start off the show, we have Carly, who posted on Facebook this question. How does someone who wasn't raised in a church find a good church, fit into a church, and connect in meaningful relationships and feel a sense of belonging there?
That's like 5 questions.
Woo, Carly. All right, Carly. So that's a good question because a lot of people feel a little lost when they go to church. What are your thoughts? What would you say to Carly about how to fit into a church and even how to find the right church for you?
I had something interesting this week, actually, where I learned a little bit more about plugging into a church. So let this encourage you all. It was in the context of like questioning leadership in your church and things like that. And somebody just kind of said, if you choose to be in this church, you are choosing to be under the leadership. And so building up resentment or bitterness isn't going to help anybody. So my encouragement to Carly and to the rest of our viewers, find out what find a church that has a vision that you can attach to. I think in order to really find belonging in a church, you need to find your space in a church that helps them move forward in the vision. And if you can't find your space in that church, maybe you need to make your space in that church. If you have a heart for single mothers or, anything along that they don't yet have a ministry for, ask your pastor and start to see what other people are around you that have a similar vision and make it happen.
That's good.
And so I think, one, just putting yourself out there, get into a small group. That's a massive thing. Most churches, I believe, have small groups or Bible studies. That's huge, I think.
So make a space and kind of find your place where you can serve.
And understand the vision of the church.
Yeah.
Don't just go to church and decide if you like their preaching or whatever. If you really want to plug in, get under the leadership and the vision and allow yourself to work towards that with them.
Yeah, I like that.
I think I'll just add 2 quick things. It sounds so cliche, but it really is the lifeblood of us as believers. Pray about it. I was in my church home previous to the one I'm in now for just under 20 years. So when we felt our season winding down, we had to go into a time of prayer and waiting and being still. And because we knew that the decision, and I understand your question, Carly, because the decision to sort of join another family is not one you just, you sort of do. And so we prayed into it and we said, God, as we sort of visit and begin to spy the land, would you confirm it in our hearts? Would you just sort of give us that sense of overwhelming peace or confirmation, maybe something being said that you've been praying about? There's some big ways that God will sort of give you that ding ding. And then the other one is just regarding community. Old time King James verse says, he that hath a friend must first show himself friendly. And I think it's very difficult, to just sort of sit in a silo and say, I don't feel like I'm a part. I'm in this situation being new, having all this title and position and now sort of coming as an underground no one, but just really engaging and being friendly and reaching out and in the meet and greet times is a great time to sort of connect, and you'll find God will just start to attach you. But it is difficult to just sit there. It won't happen if you just sit there.
Yeah, that's true.
I look at it a lot like dating. So if Carly has ever dated, it's kind of like that. You don't want to get married before you date a little, in our culture anyways. And so I think you should date. You could go on a date. It's not cheating to go on a date with 5 different people. Not all at the same time. That's, you know what I'm saying. Go on a date with 5 churches.
Yes.
and then from there, decide on one you want to date exclusively. And then from dating exclusively, you get to know a person. You go a little deeper, then you begin to discover, is this the right fit? Can I support the vision of this leadership? If it's a church that isn't too large, you can probably have coffee with the leadership.
Right.
But you can certainly find that on their website or you know, other material that they have. And then from there, if you think it's a church for you, then please get married to the church.
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't want to define the relationship and they don't fully engage, they don't fully involve. They're kind of there, but they're sitting in the back. At some point, you have to, quote unquote, get engaged and then get married. And that can look different ways in different churches. Literally, that's becoming a member of the church, that's serving in the church, that's financially giving to the church, that's engaging in community. It's putting yourself out there because that's how you receive in return. But I don't think you should do that right away. I think sometimes people, they're like, oh, I liked the music, and then they're surprised 6 months later where they've never really investigated more about the church, and they're surprised that there's like some serious financial problems or something that that actually you really don't want to get involved any further here. So like date a little and date a few before you commit further.
I like that. That's good.
That's really good.
Okay, so now we have Leslie from another Facebook post, and this is what she says. As a mature Christian woman, how do you deal with the challenges that arise between trying to live the pure and righteous Christian life with the issues of romantic love and dating? Now, interesting.
Leslie, girl.
We've had a lot of questions about dating. You know, this. You know, our viewers, our demographic that watch. You know, they're 24 to like mainly 45, that age range, and a lot of the questions are about dating. So what I'm hearing Leslie say is, as a mature woman, and I think for at any age, how do you live an integral, you know, godly, you know, dating experience in life, you know, as a follower of Jesus? Great question. And I think more so, you know, she wrote me a little later about, and how do you find a good, godly man? Well, Leslie, that's a question for the ages.
When we answer that, we will make millions.
So, okay, what are your thoughts? Let me throw it out there. What would you, Jen, what would you say as to Leslie?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to stick by your own values and convictions and not allow the world to shape you. And I would say, and I know this from my own personal experience, if you're dating a man who, you know, he's godly, maybe he's been on a Christian dating site and he's godly and he's this and that in the church, but he's stepping outside of God's law, I think that's a red flag for you. Because if he's doing that, what other promises, what other things is he saying maybe aren't true either? So that became a bit of a red flag test for me. And so really it's just, you know, praying about it, sticking to your own convictions, not allowing yourself to be pressured. And sometimes that means that you have a season where you're sort of weird, because the reality is the world has pressures. The world has pressures, and you can, you know, and I don't think you're a terrible person if you give in to them. I'm saying that sometimes, though, you can be hurt if you give in to them. And that's the difference. You know, whenever we live in a way where we're entering into sin, we can be harmed, right? And it's just these rules were made for our protection. And the reality is that getting intimately involved with bunches of strangers is not for, you know, it's not necessarily the best thing for us. So I don't look at it as like a good, bad, or a sin not. I look at it more as God has some rules for our protection. And if you want to meet a godly man, he's probably following those same rules. And he wants to protect your heart. Someone who is going to love you wants to protect your heart. So I would say look for someone who protects your heart the way God protects your heart.
Good.
I mean, dating as a practice for marriage, I don't know what the age is of the person who's asking this question, but I think of myself as an older dating person. So when you're 20 years old and you're dating, you're asking questions like, what do you want to do with your life? And when you're 30-something and 40-something and 50, I don't know, however old this person may be, 50-something, 60-something, when you're an older person dating, the question changes to what have you done with your life? And so an older person dating has an advantage over a younger in that they know themselves better, they know their values, and they have some track record of the guy they're dating to actually look at. And it's an obvious trajectory then of where they're going in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
That is good. I mean, I think I would say the same. I mean, when I had that time between, in my separation, I had to really navigate through that. It's very interesting to be married and then go back into the dating world because you're like, what?
Yeah.
Things had changed. Guy friends became more of a romantic interest to you, which really freaked me out. I mean, you had to navigate a lot of these things. But I think you're right. I had to kind of sit and go, this didn't work, how come? And now what, God, is working? Because I think I chose some of the decisions of my dating life based on what I thought was good for me. Well, Chris is completely different to what I thought I needed or wanted. And that was a really God thing because I was not looking, I wasn't even ready, I thought. And, Chris kind of came in my life and I was like, there's no way. There's no way a worship leader, pastor. That's not what I want. And here he is. So I think the praying and again the vision for my life. What do I want? And so God, I trust you with that.
Yeah, God is the best matchmaker of all.
Yeah.
It seems so ethereal to say, but it is really true. We pick based on our carnality and what rocks our world right now. God picks based on where we're going, our trajectory, and our future, and our, as we evolve, we're always evolving. Totally. So,
and pray for
yeah.
the person, whoever it is. I'm much like you in that season of married for 13 years, and then oh my word, and raising kids. It was a whole bunch. But Brian was a total shock to me too, and God missed my timeline. I'm like, so, if you could bring someone by the time I turn 40, that's when I'll get remarried, is when I'm 40. No, like right past it,
So you're more
So I'm more than 40. But like he totally went past it. And on my 40th birthday, melt down. I had a total meltdown. Yeah. Nobody wants me. Nobody wants me. I'm a loser. Like, what is wrong with me? I'm 40 years old. I've raised children. I've done all this stuff. But I then started to pray, whoever he is, if I had to come to the, I'm okay to be single. If this is how it's going to be, okay, I am content here with you. But if you do bring someone, prepare him and at the right time. And 2 years later, he did.
Yeah. Yay!
Yeah. But I prayed for him.
Yeah.
I just realized that maybe we need to just speak to the righteous living piece because that was another question she had. I say this to my daughter. I think it applies no matter how old we are. If he'll honor your body,
Yes,
he will honor your mind.
Yes.
And he will honor your spirit and your potential and all the other things because there's our bodies is just a part of who we are.
Yes.
So if you can honor my wish to sort of keep that integrity, you will get to learn so many and appreciate and fall in love with so many other things. So.
I love that.
Absolutely.
All right,
So
that's a
good.
good one. Okay, next we have from Amarachi from an Instagram post this question. I would love to hear you share about your experiences through the valley and the seasons of your life and share specific things you did that helped you get through it. Okay, Amarachi, good question.
Strap in.
Yeah.
Okay, so she wants to know in the valleys and in those seasons of her life, how did we get through it? So who wants to start?
I actually did a podcast on this a while ago with my friend Andrea Crisp, and talked pretty much about the practical things, which for me was having a list of people that I would text or call with anything. So I remember there was one specific day and I was like, I don't think I can get up today. I don't think I can get out of bed. And I felt the weight and I was like, oh, this isn't good. And I think I messaged somebody or she messaged me. It was one of the two, but regardless, I actually had like an emergency list because I was like, if this happens, I need someone to get me out of bed. And so then she called and she prayed over me. And I remember it was this like, okay, I just need like an ounce of like determination here, and I just like flung myself out of bed. And once I was up and out of bed, I was like, okay, I can do this. But it's people, it's community, and it's a lot of sitting on the floor of your shower screaming and crying and listening to, for me, it was Stephanie Gretzinger's album, The Undoing, her first album. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah. Like that, it was just constant on. So worship music for me, screaming, crying, praying in the shower. That was my safe closet, I guess. And people, community.
And don't despise the wilderness. Like I found, so I was cleaning out the attic. I need my glasses. And I found this journal that I wrote during the wilderness, and I wrote a whole bunch of stuff about the wilderness and what it means. And it's so good. But I wrote down stuff like, the wilderness is not God's rejection, but his preparation for your destiny in him. Like, I wrote everything, and it's the time when you appear to be going in the opposite direction of your dreams and the promises he made, because you're like, what is this? You perceive no growth and development, but in fact, you may, in fact, you may feel you are regressing, but his presence seems to diminish rather than grow, and you may feel unloved and even ignored, but you are not. The wilderness is where the fruit of the Spirit is cultivated. Watered by the intense desire to know him, we seek to walk as he walks. It's a dry place. It is here, though, that God gives daily bread, not abundance of things. He meets our needs. The purpose of the wilderness is to purify us. Our pursuit is to be his heart, not his provision.
Wow, that's great, Kim.
Read. I actually think it was a John Bevere book about the wilderness and worship music, but not also embracing the valley and the wilderness. It's a season, but it's in preparation for the next thing.
Because we always want to run out of it, get out of it quickly, and yet actually those are some of the best places I've learned about myself. Because it's scary sitting and thinking about yourself. You know, you never want to be confronted with you, and it shines a light on a lot of things that you need to work on, the things you value, and then it was those places where I have felt the closest with God.
Yes,
right.
Totally.
Right?
Or can I just say, for some people, the wilderness won't come to an end until we get to heaven. Like there is a promise for all of us who are Christians of like hope and life everlasting. And for some people, this isn't a health and wealth gospel. It's not the wilderness is now, but 2 years from now, I'll have the things I wanted. In many ways, we will not be fully complete and out of that wilderness until we're with Jesus face to face. And I cannot wait for that day. But until that day, there will be pain and hardship and trial. And like it is the Christian hope of eternal life that gives us something to get out of bed about in the morning. It's the only thing at some points that will get us up or get us moving or give us hope. That God comforts us in those times because he reminds us of this great hope. And some people's wilderness is until they die. And then they find their freedom, and then they find promised land.
And I think in saying that, I think like even with what Abby was saying, it was community, but I had a great Christian counselor. I had to have professional help and direction to get me there. I had a great church community. And I had to be brave to ask help from friends. Because a lot of times, sometimes you're like, I don't want to worry them. I don't want to bother them. Like, are they really going to come over and drive me to my doctor's appointment? Well, what I realized in those times is that people want to be needed and help people. So here I was keeping back opportunity for people to serve, and because I had my own issues. And then as soon as I did it, they're like, thank you for asking. And we knew something was wrong. Now we can serve you. And I kind of felt like, is that a selfish thing? But then I realized, no, that's part of the body of Christ. That's what we're supposed to be about.
I love that.
Is loving, right? And serving.
I just remembered, just to encourage whoever's watching that is in a valley, we did an amazing show on this. It's called Change Your Why to What. And the whole show is about what to, how our perspective and what God's saying and the lessons during the tough times. And maybe you just want to go onto our website and look that up and watch that. That would really inspire and encourage you.
I think that was part of your journey, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it was a switch because I thought, like life is fun. And sometimes my kids are like, my day's not fun. And I'm like, honey, life isn't fun. Becoming an adult. I'm one of those comforting, inspiring moms.
I mean, I just told people some people are going to be in the crap till they die.
Welcome to See Here Love, an inspiring and encouraging show.
Anyway, what you say is true.
But it's that, it's not a playground, it's a training ground. And so for me, it's always look for the lesson, look for the lesson, look for the lesson. And, on days that are awful, I try to think, can I do something for someone else? Can I write something for someone else? The day, my husband now knows how to read my blog that I write, but, when I write about, how to have a better life, he's like, oh, it was a bad day. It was a bad
Oh, that's so funny.
Because it's, I mean, in some ways I'm writing for myself, but I'm also writing to try to break me out of that. So if you're in the valley, anything you can cling on to. I mean, we've heard worship music, devotionals. Devotionals, like short, read them. They're awesome.
You just say like exercise.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of us are good at it. Abby, I know you are. But I mean, I see sometimes you get up early and like move outside.
That's true. I do go for walks. I go for walks.
Yeah, your legs are moving.
Your legs.
No matter.
Yeah.
Like we all know that like that adrenaline, that good sweating it out stuff is so healthy for our mind.
Yeah.
I will say I had that thought in the valley, and I physically did not have capacity to do
And sometimes
that.
you don't.
Yeah,
No,
sometimes you
and
don't.
so, but getting outside in general is
That's
huge.
good. Oh, I love that.
And along with devotional, so I watched and listened to a ton of sermons because it seemed the wilderness seems to be a season where you just soak it all up, and everything you hear resonates with you in some way. And so take advantage of that and soak it all up. I read through Isaiah for no specific reason. I just remember one day being like, I need to read the word every day because I was so dry and desperate and like lost. And I ended up reading a chapter of Isaiah every day, and it was so meaty. And like, it's all about how the Lord lost, how like, you know, the Israelites left the presence of the Lord essentially, and how he won them back and how there was restoration. And it was so beautiful because as I read through that season,
That was your journey.
it was my journey, and like, you know, and so I could relate to the Israelites and relate to being lost, and I could relate to God's broken heart. But then, because I was going through loss, right? But then I saw the promises, and those promises became my promises. Isaiah 43:19, see, I'm doing a new thing. I'm making a way in the wilderness. And that became it was actually the verse that was given it popped up on my phone New Year's Day. And I was like, okay, I'm taking this. This is going to be, you know. Yeah. And so then I just focused on God's doing a new thing. He's not doing the next thing. He's not, you know, he's not giving me back the old stuff. He's doing a new thing in me. And and then by the end of the book, it's the restoration, the remarriage, and like, you know, just beautiful. And
so hopeful.
So hopeful. Right? Yeah.
It's good. All right. We have one last question.
So good.
From Holly on an Instagram post, and this is what Holly writes. I would love to hear you talk about how society has completely lost the concept of helping others. I can't help but look at society today and see how selfish everyone is becoming and how self-absorbed everyone is becoming. Maybe I'm beginning to think that social media is so selfish, and I just feel as though a large part of society is forgetting how to love each other and to really care for each other. I feel society is so hungry for authenticity along with love. Period. So it's sort of like a statement / we can create a question out of that. Now, she's saying a lot there. She feels that society is not caring or helpful. She's saying that we need more authenticity and care for one another. Thoughts about that? I mean, I think if you dig deeper into what she's saying, there's other things that are coming out of how she's feeling.
1000% correct. We live in a voyeuristic society. We live in a place where people enjoy other people's pain for entertainment. And I'm not talking, this may not resonate heavily with our generation, but it is like the life of our younger generations. Someone is in crisis, someone is going through something, and rather than help or serve, the phone is up and it's recording and it's being sent out and it's entertainment. And we need to find our heart again. We're losing our heart, our capacity to feel in love. We're seeing callousness and violence and anger and mistreatment in our world, and we're wondering, where is the love? You know, it's this of the Black Eyed Peas song.
Just as soon as it kept coming to me.
Don't sing it.
Oh, come on. I will. And then that will be the end of the show.
But I really do understand where that question is coming from, and we were saying this in the change room, this is one of those questions for me. As much as I love to sort of be deep, I don't know if I have the answer for this one.
Yes.
I can echo that this is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes the channel, for me, it's changed the channel because, I mean, the news cycle is just brutal these days. And for me, it's kind of, it goes back to, I think it was Mr. Rogers who said it, that look for the helpers. And so, I mean, it was going on recently where children were being detained at the border, and it got really overwhelming, but I literally had to switch the channel. I went onto Facebook where there were a lot of people who were very helpful, and they were raising funds, and they were, anyone who knew a language was going down and helping at the border, and I just thought, I can give money. I wrote to the Prime Minister, I wrote to my MP. It's flipping the channel so you feel empowered to help in that situation, and it can be really little. Like sometimes it's literally looking at what your social media feed is.
Right.
Because there are great ones out there.
Yes.
And flipping to that so you can feel hope, not helplessness.
Yeah,
That's good.
that's good. Joanna, do you have something?
I mean, she's talking as if this is new, and it's not. I mean, this has been true forever. Ask your grandma, ask any of the history books, look in the Bible. People who are selfish and at war and taking pleasure in other people's pain and voyeuristic. I mean, all these things, the technology has changed, but people are people are people. Sin is sin is sin. The only solution to pain and sorrow and grief and sin is Jesus Christ. He came, he died in our place, and he empowers those by the Holy Spirit to do the work of the gospel. The best news in the world is the healing and power and life of the Holy Spirit offered through Jesus. Like there is no other solution. And so yes, we have to use our wisdom to turn off the junk on social media, but like the Spirit of God at work within an individual person can change everyone around them. And so when we read the Bible, we have to start at Genesis 1, not at Genesis 3. At Genesis 3, there's a fall and there's sin. But at Genesis 1, the world is good and God walks with us and there's an intimacy and there is a work. From before sin, there was work. There was work in the garden. We are to care for the world. That is the work of being human. And so to walk with God and care for the world is our task before sin. So after sin, we needed a solution to that. We have Christ. So in Christ, now our work is to walk with God and heal the world. Like that is our task. And so this is not any different. I don't want our viewers to feel like this is some terrible new thing. The news has always been bad. We just have more channels.
Right.
That is really good. And I love that idea. I mean, overall, all of the questions that we've answered have Jesus. Like you can't do it within yourself, in your own power. It's got to be, Jesus, the work of the Spirit in you, community. I mean, all of these things that we talk about all the time here on See Her Love. You've got to have this. And if you don't, how do you do life, well? And the hope of Christ is the hope.
I love what you're saying, and I got to echo my girl Joanna here because of that, what came to me from what she said directly is, so there is this clarion call then to compassion.
Yes.
There is this call that's going out because of the work of Christ, because of the redemption of Christ, to be Jesus extended, right? And so compassion is an inner work. And so as we're seeing and as we're sort of like discouraged and shattered and like you said, sort of this new upset, but really it's an old thing, find what God is saying to you about how to be his hands and his feet and to be that mirror of compassion. I love that.
Thank
so
you,
good.
you guys.
Yeah,
Great
so
discussion. Your answers were so thoughtful, encouraging, and so helpful. And I think that's what our hope is here on See Her Love, is to help one another and support one another, but also our viewers and the people that watch. And to Carly, Leslie, Amarachi, and Holly, thank you so much for taking the time to write to us, for asking such great questions. And we hope we answered you well, and that our conversation will help you as you journey in your faith with God. And to you, our viewers, thanks for journeying along with us. We have so appreciated your support, your encouragement, your emails and notes, and even your financial support to keep See Her Love on the airwaves around the world. Well, we're cheering you on, and we hope you continue to cheer us on as well. And always know that you are seen, heard, and deeply loved by God. Bye-bye.